My name is Cheryl Wilson. I'm a niece of Onita Hahn, who was born on October 14th, 1914. She passed away April 6th of 2011 at the age of 96 years. In 1937, my aunt married Henry Hahn. They lived with my grandmother. In 1939, my uncle Henry passed away unexpectedly. Anita continued to live with her mother to her time of her death. Anita and Grandma, they always quilted, and they never boasted and said, look what I did, anything like that. They were just real quiet.
But
And
that
they
was
were all-
something they did a lot in
Yes.
the evening together.
Yes, they
Okay.
would set the quilting frame up in the dining room, and it would be there for a good many months during the wintertime. And I remember, my sister also remembers, one point they wanted us to try to stitch. So I'm a small girl, probably maybe about 8 years old, and I tried to make a couple stitches. Well, my grandmother kind of looks at it and she goes, well, that's okay, but the next thing I know, the stitches were out and they were redone. They made their own patterns out of newspaper. They weren't ones to go out and spend much money.
So, and they just got ideas from magazines?
I think they got idea. There was some magazines there, a couple little quilt books. I have no idea where the idea for the butterfly quilt came from, but it's a perfect butterfly, and the way she did is just beautiful. Anita worked at Indianapolis Glove Factory here in Coshanta. While she worked there, she would piece quilts. In fact, she would work on this quilt. It's called a butterfly quilt. And she would do this on her breaks, and then she would bring it home and she'd work on it in the evenings. Her and her mother would sit and make quilts. Any of them were not sewn on a sewing machine. My grandmother died in 1980. In 1990, my aunt was diagnosed with cancer. My husband was gracious enough to offer to take her to Ohio State. She had frequent visits to Ohio State for testing.
She never claimed me as a blood relative, but she claimed me as a nephew-in-law. So, and that's how she would introduce me to different people in her life.
Mm-hmm.
This is my niece's husband. I always called her my favorite aunt. And Aunt Nita always wanted to, on our trips, always wanted to buy lunch or pay for the gas or whatever, and because she didn't have a whole bunch of money, told her I would put it on the bill, and someday I'd send it to her, and I always said, once I saw this quilt, I said, I want this quilt. That could be payment for me. And so she did give it to me, and I, considered it payment in full.